Carfields, pioneers for over 50 years, supporting life and prosperity on the land for all generations. Carfields, your trusted partner on the land.
Well, thank you so much to our great friends at Carfields Livestock for bringing our livestock section for this week. And we're diving into the current countrywide autumn. One of the stories that I really like that Tony Leggett pulled together for us after he attended a field day was a very compelling case for diversification into farming deer. And what he did is he looked at the sort of average trend lines for venison since 2004 for lamb and beef, and venison very much stood out. The person that sort of pulled all these numbers together is BakerAg farm consultant Matt Carroll, who joins me now. Matt, thank you for coming and joining us on CountryWide Connect. It's a great 4-page article, selling the story of deer and diversification, but the numbers are really compelling too. I just wanted to start by sort of going over the case study examples that you did. How did you go about pulling it together?
So, g'day, Sarah. There's a bit of an initiative we put together for beef and lamb and the deer industry. You talk to any deer farmer and they're pretty passionate about what they do, but they're very good at talking to each other. So it's about getting that story out to everyone else who also is in livestock farming in New Zealand. So with beef and lamb and dins, we sort of said, well, what options are there? And the key option is that there's a lot of deer fencing around the country that doesn't have deer behind it. And so it's looking at, well, why was that the case? And so as part of this, I looked at the scheduled data that we had in the BakerAg database for the last 20 years just to see what that difference was. And then for the field days, and we've had 3 of them now, we've run another one since that article has come through down in Southland, which went really well. And so I basically modelled a property that was a traditional 80 to 20 sheep to cattle ratio. And there was 4 different scenarios, and the last one was a third sheep, beef and deer to sort of say what is the expected gross profit that would produce, and how consistently could it produce that income. And so that is where we sort of basically said the benefit of diversification, benefit of having deer as a part of that really shone through and had its benefit. And a lot of that is it takes the risk out from being overexposed, but it also means that you can utilise the benefits that deer have within the property as well. Yeah.
So looking on this financial analysis here, you were looking at a return per stock unit with deer at $170 per stock unit in comparison to $150 to $160 for sheep, and high-performing cattle systems $110 to $130. It's really interesting because I suppose in the last wee while it's been sort of rocky times since COVID. It's been up and down all over the show with venison and velvet. But is it just showcasing that over time it is a good, reliable, consistent revenue stream amongst the others, like to have a balanced portfolio of stock?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of things there. That 150 to 160 sheep stock unit and those cattle stock units are historical averages that I got from a colleague of mine at BakerAg. But of course, the last 12 months have really thrown them around, where sheep and cattle have been. So that 170 for deer, I still think that's a realistic figure, and that's with a breeder finisher producing to a decent weight. But the second part of your question there, so the benefit of having deer within the species is risk reduction is a big part. And so that 80-20, the property that was 80-20 sheep to cattle ratio, are enjoying the land price at the moment, but 3 years ago they wouldn't have been. Well, that's the key part of their income. That's when they really feel it. So when you look at the longer term trends, the benefit of having another stock class in there, and it's the same reason why people are going into tourism, why hunting was really looked at, why alternative income sources are really handy. What we're sort of saying here is that actually, if you've got deer infrastructure on your farm, then there's the opportunity that they can just slot in. If you're a good stockman, there's no reason why you can't be good with them as well and reap benefits.
Yeah, you touched on a very good point, because I think majority of the time, if you don't have experience with deer, for some farmers it can be a bit daunting.
Yeah. There's the classic is, I wouldn't farm deer because I went and gave my uncle's mate a hand out the back blocks or somewhere and got and bear all the bruises and broken bones to came with it back in the early late 80s, early 90s. But deer are a very different animal now, and you breed for temperament, and you can take that out. And I'd argue you can get just as beaten up by deer as you can with lambs or sheep or cattle anyway. I'd say the infrastructure is the key part about it, and it's the person's temperament. A good stockman is calm in the yards and calm around the animals, and they're calm animals back at them. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because if I think about, and trying not to be Canterbury-centric in anything I talk about, but there's a lot of deer units that are going up on the market, but they're at sort of dairy grazing prices. And so therefore ripping out the infrastructure is the sort of only way to make it stack up in some of those areas. I know that's not everywhere. And a lot of deer blocks are in sort of that sheep and beef pricing. But, to go and rip it out seems like it is a big capital expense to go and start from scratch, right?
Yeah, 100%. But what we're seeing most people do is that if there's infrastructure already there, then you can run any animal behind it. So if there's the infrastructure there, you can run what you want. And so if you keep that, if you maintain the infrastructure that's there, then it gives you that optionality. Obviously, flat land is going to be more of a challenge because there's other things that need to pay their way, and the cost of the land needs to therefore be earning its way. But I think it's in hill countries we're really seeing the potential benefits to be able to have breeding hinds on hill country. One, because especially for the North Island, where the first, if you're going to give deer a go, if you're going to give deer a go in the North Island, getting hold of weaners and finishing them would be the first step. But we're short on weaners in the North Island, so breeding hinds in the North Island would make the most sense. And there's a real opportunity there if you've got hill country with deer infrastructure to be able to sell a store animal that is quite well demanded at the moment.
Where are weaner hinds pricing at the moment?
Oh, that's the big question. Deer weaner prices. I don't know when this comes out. I might get in trouble for saying the wrong thing, but that's I think last year it was $6 to $6.50 was sort of roughly where things were selling, but definitely some higher. There's been some have started at $7 this year for really good heavy early weaners. But it depends on the quality of the weaner as well. But the challenge with the North Island, we always used to have the tie-heavy sale, which used to help set that price. We don't have that anymore. So that does come with its challenges, but also with weaners is no weaner will go across the ferry. So that North Island, South Island difference is you definitely see a premium for weaners in the North Island than you do in the South Island. That's purely just supply and demand. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. But an opportunity from a land use to actually get into it in the North Island to breed up because of that supply-demand issue.
Definitely, and older hinds can come across on the boat, and they do. So you can still buy replacement hinds from down the south. It's just the weaners, the young deer that don't come across. So, there's definitely opportunity there for those who are interested. And when you look at them compared to sheep and beef, and that was the other part that the day was talking about, was the cost of running those animals is less. And so when you look at that 150, 160 we used to use for sheep. You then take out, $10 to $14 a stock unit for shearing, and $7 a stock unit for animal health and the likes. Well, $7 would be total, but the comparative share of costs that the deer will hold is comparatively less, and so that's what really helps them. Really helps to show that they are an opportunity.
The interesting part also around is the sort of rotational grazing element of deer. And there's some real benefits, particularly if people are facing a bit of drench resistance.
Yeah, so it was brilliant at the field day we had at Westfield because we had Jenny Dudusky come along, and so she was able to articulate that a hell of a lot better than I'm going to try and do. But in the simple terms is that another species added in definitely helps with drench resistance because you've got another species coming through, so you can rest that paddock longer between the animals, but also it means that you're not having the same over and over again, which does tend to cause some of the issues. But on feed as well, and especially when you look at the hill country for deer, is it when that key feed demand comes on is a really important part as well. Because if we look at a feed demand on a sheep beef deer breeding property, you've got sheep demand comes in September lambing, the cattle are coming in a month later, and then the hinds are all, their demand's coming on in November and then into the summer months. So you don't want to pinch your hind after Christmas, really. You want to be able to look after them over summer. So if you're dry area, you need to be able to manage that. But if you're a good, typical North Island, summer wet hill country property with deer infrastructure, a hind fits those hills really well.
I was just thinking about an earlier interview this week around this stock exclusion from wetlands rule around extensive versus intensive. It's really going to help support deer farming and their natural ability to wallow, as opposed to going and fencing off every single waterway. I don't know if you've caught up on that, Matt, but it's quite positive for deer.
Yeah. And a lot of that's going to come down to the stocking rate as well, and how they run on the hills. And you look at the South Island guys with their quite extensive pond operations up on the hills. I mean, those deer thrive down there because that is their natural habitat, and arguably you can manage what environmental impact they could potentially have through a stocking rate. And those guys are pretty low stocking rate, mustering by helicopter and the likes.
So for those interested in deer, don't get put off if you're seeing velvet go through some pretty bumpy schedules at the moment. If venison has got that flatter return.
100%. I mean, venison the last 5 years, when you look at that trend data, it's the tidiest incline that it's had. I mean, so if you look at the graphs, you've got the R equation and the Y equation, just to put too many numbers out there. But it's the closest to 1 on the R equation is how close the trend line is to the graph. And so that's a 0.93 for the last 5 years for deer, compared to 0.74 for length and 0.27 for sheep. So sheep are good at the moment, but we've also had some pretty hard times in the last 5 years. So therefore the variability is huge. Deer variability has often been given a hard time, but I'll pretty firmly push back on saying that actually all the products that we farm have variability. That's just farming. And so if you're in more of them, then it does some of that risk out of the system. Yeah. But our venison prices are looking better. There's room to improve, but there's always room to improve in all of our scheduled prices. But it's that consistency is the key, and there's basically a flat schedule going right the way through. But the other key point to make is if someone's, you open your, I probably shouldn't mention it, I was going to say open the Farmers Weekly, but you go to the second page and you're from the back and you always look at what the prices are. That is the advertised price for deer, and there can be almost a $2 difference by the time you've got all of the quality assurance schemes and meet the criteria that your works want. And so that's something that doesn't really help people looking through the difference, looking through how they compare.
No, that's a very good point. And obviously, thanks to our friends at Carfields, the way to find out is talk to your local Carfields rep, who'll be able to give you a bit more of a transparent price at the time. The article features of Matt from Matt's Field Day in CountryWide Autumn, a really good read. Thank you very much, Matt. I think I'm always a massive supporter of deer farming in New Zealand, and it's great to actually have some tangible data there so that people can sit down with their farm consultant, their bank manager, and actually open the CountryWide and say, I think we should consider this, because at the end of the day, variability matters and diversification matters for sustainable, profitable farming businesses in New Zealand. So thank you, Matt Carroll from BakerAg.
Thank you. Cheers.
And that is our piece there from Carfields, our great friends at Carfields, bringing you our livestock section every week here on CountryWide Connect.
Whatever your farm needs, machinery, seed, livestock or finance, Carfields has the solution and the expertise to back them up. Find out more at carfields.co.nz.